Auto dealers have miles to go before they weep because right now they're still fighting. Even as Chrysler and GM slip into Chapter 11 to free themselves from antiquated state laws forbidding them from axing dealerships, Congress is eager to interfere. Heads of General Motors, Chrysler, along with several dealers, have endured several congressional hearings on this. A proposed law would seek to block the troubled car makers from taking the steps they say they need to take to downsize. Tammy Darvish owns something like 34 dealerships, including a Chrysler shop. Peter Flaherty is back, president of the National Legal and Policy Center, and Kevin Smith is with Edmunds.com. All right, Tammy, how'd you do on Capitol Hill this week? I think you told us that you were heading over to Washington.
We were, and we missed you. We thought you were going to be there. We did really well. You know, we introduced our bill. It's H.R. 2743, and we have, as of 5 or 6 o'clock p.m. this evening, over 123 members of Congress already signed on to co-sponsor our bill.
Yeah, and Tammy, if you were convinced that what Chrysler needs to do, really, one of the key things it needs to do to stay alive is to trim its dealer network, would you then stop your opposition?
No, I wouldn't, because this is the United States of America, and this is about constitutional rights. And I find it very interesting that even Ron Bloom himself this week acknowledged that they just discovered that it was the federal government who forced the automakers to put the squeeze on the auto dealers, and that's not appropriate.
Okay. Hey, Peter, she just talked about constitutional rights, but don't GM and Chrysler have a certain right to trim their dealer networks when they need to?
Well, sure, but they didn't do it. The White House did it, and there have been accusations that this was done in an arbitrary and even a political manner. So I think it's important at this point for the White House to release the criteria it used to close all these dealerships, many of them which are very profitable.
I don't think there was any criteria.
Right, so how'd they pick, Tammy?
You know, I think, as he said, I mean, there were a lot of different reasons why. And if you sat and listened to the testimony, it's all public. You can go on the Internet and read it and see some of the emails and the trash that transpired between agents from the federal government and the auto manufacturers. They should be ashamed of themselves. And I told you that last week. I want to know, does President Obama know that his staff is behaving in this unconscionable manner?
Well, I think he does.
What's he going to do about it?
Well, they've been acting thuggishly, and I think Obama's the top thug. I don't think he's going to do anything about it. This was not a bankruptcy. It was more like securities fraud conducted by the Obama administration and the United Auto Workers against taxpayers, bondholders, and dealers.
Okay.
And that's the process we're dealing with here, and that's why it's become so messy.
Yeah, let's go to Kevin Smith. Can you split the baby for us here? I mean, I just find it hard to believe that there's some dark motive inside the Obama administration. Let's find a couple dealers we've never met and really find a way to destroy their lives. What do you think? How do you balance the needs of the two sides here?
Well, I'm not sure I can, because obviously there's some powerful vested interests. From my point of view, as I try to be an independent observer, I have to accept a couple of facts, one of which is the business has shrunk dramatically. We were selling 16 million units a year 2 years ago. Now we're down to 9 or 10. Obviously, we don't need as many car companies. We don't need as many cars. We need to close factories. I mean, it's tragic, but this is what's going to happen, and I don't really see any way around it. There is probably no good way to do this.
Right.
Manufacturers will tell you they need fewer, healthier dealers. Too many dealerships too close together drive down margins and prices, and
right.
Make it harder to deliver the kind of customer service they want and the kind of brand stewardship they want. I know that this is going to be really painful and it's going to be awful, just as it is for workers who are laid off, white collar or blue collar. But I got to feel like this is a direction we're probably going to have to go.
Well, that may be, but are we going to toss out contract law?
Yeah.
Are we going to toss out
Peter, they
private
filed
property
Chapter
rights?
11. When you filed Chapter 11, you were protected from creditor lawsuits and other, legal requirements because you're trying to save your company, right? When you go into Chapter 11.
Except this was a rigged Chapter 11. Why did Mac McClarty, Clinton's former chief of staff, have all his competitors wiped out? There's so many unanswered questions about the way this was conducted. I disagree with Tammy. Somebody had to make the list, and I'd like to know who compiled it and what criteria they used to put a dealer on it or keep a dealer off.
Well,
right.
what right do they have to even compile a list?
Well,
we are of no cost to manufacture.
That's the point I'm making. I think that if they did if they did release the criteria, it would be hugely embarrassing to them. That's why I want them to do it. And that's probably why they won't do it.
I can't understand, Peter. You're the libertarian. I can't even understand why you think some dealer someplace should have a right to demand that I'm allowed to keep selling GM cars.
Look, when Barney Frank called up Fritz Henderson, the acting CEO of GM, and sought to get a special favor, that was meddling.
That was bad.
That was wrong. Now, what we're talking about here is something different. We're talking about the contracts that these dealers had with the automakers. We're talking about them just being arbitrarily abrogated by the government, and people who employ people, people who are making money, people who are pillars of their community, just being told you're out of business. What is this, Putin's Russia?
Okay.
Exactly. It's completely inappropriate. We're independent business people.
Well, Tammy, keep fighting.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
And keep coming on.
There's too much junk food. You're going to start closing a bunch of fast food restaurants now because there's too many hamburgers?
Don't give them any ideas.
Only if the market dictates it. I have to wrap, folks. Tammy, Peter, Kevin, thank you very much.